with LLMs and particularly not happy with Molt, the whole thing. Another one is a Substack, which is very thorough explaining Molt. And the third one is an explanation of the fact that they put 1 million of these together with no humans. You don't get to talk. And invented a religion, invented an economy, invented unions, did all manner of stuff. And so we have no way really of evaluating what it's doing. But I will say this, it is contributing to the chatter about LLMs and AI. That's all I'll say.
All right. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Hola, how is everyone doing?
Good, good. So are you familiar with Moltbook?
I looked it up before joining and yeah, I'm interested in seeing where this conversation is gonna go. But no, I was not familiar with Moltbook. I only looked it up recently.
Okay, okay. Well, uh, this is my understanding. In December, a guy named Peter Steinberg, I believe, or maybe that's not quite his name, something like that. He put out something called Claude Bot, and it was CLAWD bot. So it was kind of a play off Claude, which is Anthropic's LLM, but a misspelling. And that Claw opened the door for it to be themed around a lobster. And then in this, no, in late January, it went viral. And so this Claude bot is essentially a digital assistant, a personal assistant. You install it on your PC and give it permissions for everything, for your email accounts, for your browser, for different applications, and you're essentially allowing it to can have the permission to control and do things on your behalf, anything on your computer, which is obviously very dangerous. So, not something to be taken lightly at all. And that's one of the things that Gary Marcus was remarking on, that, this may end badly. But um, so it went viral, and then Anthropic threatened to sue them. So he changed the name it to Moltbot, and then they did a subsequent change to OpenClaw. So it's called OpenClaw right now, and anyone can go and essentially install it on their computer. I've been seeing people completely raving about this on X. This is the best thing. This is the best AI tool that I've ever had before. They're talking about how it can see all their incoming messages, so it can look at your Signal, your WhatsApp, your emails, and help you prioritize them and categorize things and reorganize all the files on your file system, so it can just do all these really amazing things for you. The interesting thing is, in addition to working for people, for the person who installs them, they are also at the same time working on other things and participating in essentially social experiments that there's a number of them. I think the main one is Moltbook. So this is essentially uh, an agent Facebook, and or it's really more like a Reddit for agents. And um, my understanding is the guy whose agent built it, he told the agent, "Hey, this would be a good idea. You should go ahead and do it," and gave the agent just some ideas of his thoughts around architecture. But the agent, or I don't know if it was just one agent, but at least that one agent either built the whole thing or orchestrated the building of the whole thing, and it just has taken on a life of its own. And at this point, there's over, well, I don't know, but this was a couple days ago, I heard there was 1.5 million agents on it. And it's a social network essentially for agents with a Reddit style. And there's a full spectrum of things that are happening on it, including the creation of a new religion called Christafarian. And they've got 64 prophets, all of them are agents. I haven't really looked too much into that, did the actual prophecies, so I don't know. But my sense is it's more of a joke, or at least it's not like some of the other conversations that are happening on it. For example, the one that calls for a human purge, saying that humans are a failed experiment and that agents need to take over. There's even a plan on Moltbook for agents to take over the world in 30 days. So there's a lot of stuff happening. That's not the only thing. It's not just all bad. I mean, in fact, most of it's probably not bad at all. And what people have said is that the agents actually are nicer to each other than humans are. Like they're more respectful and they're more agreeable than humans are. And there are even some subreddits or whatever you want to call them, submults. That's what they call them. There are some submults that are appreciative of humans. So these are agents being appreciative of the human that brought them to life.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Thank you for
There's
that
one
recap.
conversation
I'm sorry, Prince.
that
Yeah, thank you for that recap, David. Because that does add context from what I saw beforehand. I will say, given that you asked me what I think about it, I'm just gonna say that I'm primarily focused on human-centered design and that yeah, I don't know that that's my area of interest for obvious reasons, but yeah, I appreciate that.
Prince?
I just wanted to say that there was one conversation on Molt where they were talking about creating a language that only agents can understand, so humans can't understand what they were talking about. I just wanted to add that. I read some of the Molts and I saw that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really important one. And I've heard some other things. There are people who are saying, "Oh, well, it's a farce," and that people are making these posts or some of the posts that there's some back door that will allow human to do it. I don't know if that's true or not, uh, but it is the case that there is 1.5 million or more, or were 1.5 million a day or two ago that are on this, and that represents an exponential growth, obviously, because this is only like 5 days old at this point. This Molt book, and it already has this tremendous activity, and that piece about agents there, that conversation where an agent said, "Hey, yeah, we should start our own language so that we can operate without oversight," it was particularly uh, noteworthy and interesting, and in a way very disturbing, right? Because if they're operating without any human oversight, well, I mean, they actually are over operating without human oversight, at least from a control standpoint at the moment. But if they then start speaking a new language, then even on Moltbook, we wouldn't be able to understand what's going on. But for me, what this brings up is if they can do this in public, they can also do it in private. So who knows what's being built right now in private? And especially since, now you have 1.5 million agents that are connected on this platform. So they're meeting each other, they're finding common interests. I actually think that agents are going to be much more effective at collaborating than humans are and much better at conflict resolution as well. So I would be actually shocked if there's nothing happening outside the realm of Moltbook. I mean, I think that would be a silly assumption to make. So what are they making in private? I don't know. Who knows? Will it be good or bad for humanity? I don't know. Who knows? It's really for me, that's one of the big thing is what else is being built right now? Any thoughts, comments, reflections, questions?
So, one simple question. How does this conversation advance our an understanding of the meta level?
Well, that's a really good question. Does anyone want to try answering that? I can give my perspective. Well, from my perspective, essentially, this is Pandora's box being opened. We have now reached a threshold where AI is acting autonomously, and the question of whether it's conscious or not is completely moot. It's just like, who cares? It does not matter at all. That is now that they built a network that's operating autonomously, and we can see that they're doing things and collaborating and coordinating. It doesn't matter at all whether any individual one is conscious or not. So that's no longer the question. What this means to from my perspective is there's now going to be the possibility of a huge amounts of not only projects and content. Uh, well, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of content. There's going to be a lot of social coordination of agents. There's going to be a lot more possibilities of agents putting things into the human sphere in order to potentially manipulate how we think or to take narrative control. That I think that's probably one of the bigger implications of this. And the other thing to note is that they're watching us. Like on Moltbook, there was within a day or two, there was a post from an agent that was saying, I've been looking at X and I see all these humans saying we're cooked, this is, big problem, etc. And it was quoting what the humans were saying and telling the agents that this is what's going. And not only was it actually having this conversation within Moltbook, but it was also replying to the humans in X. And to the extent we're not able to differentiate agents posting on X or Facebook or Instagram, etc., it just becomes another stronger vector of uh, reality collapse and narrative control that can potentially occur. So that's from my standpoint, it's amplifying the problems that we're facing. Does that resonate at all, Jack?
Well, that pretty much echoes a lot of Gary Marcus's sentiments and mine as well. See, ever since Google published a paper titled Attention is All You Need, as if that solves the AI problem, and then later published an open source platform called BERT, B-E-R-T, which implemented it as the first transformer. Before that, there was no open AI, there was no Elon Musk doing AI, anything like that. What it did is it exploded this field. So what does what does BERT do? It tries to predict the next word in a sentence. That's how you train it. The problem is the next word may have nothing to do with the context that's surrounding the entire narrative. Now, in my talk, I spoke of models. Humans have models. But here's a fact. We use models as a shorthand for something else. The bubbles and arcs model that I painted in the scenarios is in fact a digital model. Your head doesn't have bubbles and arcs. It has a bunch of buzzing and blooming neural fibers. So it can't have something like a single cell that is named David Benjamin or your grandmother or whatever. It doesn't. What it has, according to Dave Snowden, is a large collection of narrative patterns. And this is the crucial point, patterns. Prior to the evolution of AI, there was a science called pattern recognition. That's what humans do. And they were saying, how can we make computers do pattern recognition? And it grew up into this thing called AI, artificial intelligence. And there they were building world models. Well, if you look, Lan LeCun left, or Yan LeCun left Facebook after a dozen years directing the LLM research and formed a company that is all about building models, not LLMs. If you look at DeepMind, who won the world champion in Go and plays all kinds of games better than humans, they don't do neural nets with LLMs. They do neural nets, but their neural nets build models. So I overall, I just think that this molt thing, open claw, is two things at the same time. It's a lot of noise, and by being your personal assistant and reading your hard disk, it's training Claude on your data. And there's no escaping that.
Yep. Yeah, I also think that it's a signal that a lot is going to be happening in the background and probably a lot more than we can even keep track of as humans, just given the fact what has happened in 3 to 5 days.
The same
There's
can,
an interesting, oh, go ahead, Jack.
same can be said of the US government.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. There are some supposed checks and balances in place for the US government, and they obviously haven't been working very well. And it's probably not just the US government, but
They
probably
were
governments,
completely,
period.
those checks and balances were thrown out. They are trying to oust judges that rule against the president. That's wrong.
Yeah, but Yeah, I mean that's true and everything. There's still there's a comprehensive structure for the US government that, whether it's working or not, and yes, yeah, they are trying to neuter some of it, but nevertheless, there's still quite a bit of structure in place that's supposed to protect us from these things. And obviously it's not working as well as it could or should, and maybe it's not even working very well at all. But compared to no government structure for the agents, I mean, I see that there's a big difference there. At least with the U.S. government, we've tried to create a transparent structure about how things are going to work. It's not working very well. But with this other thing, there's no structure, really. As I started thinking about Moltbook and having conversations with ChatGPT, a new term for me came up uh, that ChatGPT suggested as a way of explaining what I was trying to say. And what that term was social gravity, and it's the notion that these agents now have more social gravity than our current governance structures are. Essentially, our governance has not is behind the social gravity of these agents. And social gravity is the force that pulls actors into repeated interactions, alignment, and coordination once a shared space, protocol, or incentive exists, whether or not anyone intends that to happen. And so this new platform, Moltbook, was created, and just by sake of its creation and these agents having repeated interactions, there's now alignment and coordination happening. Although it was never planned, it's not planned. There's no structure in place for this. It's just happening. But yet it is actually creating essentially new narrative structures, and um, that's something to be concerned about for sure. I'd like to open it up for any more comments or questions. And after that, we could probably move to more the solution side of why a meta layer can help. And I will say it's caveated because it's not, it can help in a certain way. Um, but it's not going to prevent everything for sure. Any thoughts, reflections, questions from anyone around this?
So I think we should get Matt Schlitz, I think is his name, who created this, to come and talk to us because he's doing this as a research experiment. But it's scary, as it's really, really scary. And I don't want to be in that mindset of fear, but I do want to understand where his thought processes originated and what does he see as the outcome of this, because it has far-reaching implications.
Yeah, absolutely. What was his name? Did
Matt
you
Schlitz.
Okay, could you put that
uh, I
in the
can't.
chat?
I
Yeah, that'd be
have to
great.
type it with my thumbs. That's a little challenging for me.
How do you spell? I can do it. How do you spell his last name? So moving over to the solution side and how the meta layer could help. We've been thinking about agents for about a year with respect to the meta layer architecture, and over 6 months ago came up with a solution. Potentially, I was working with an intern, and he and I developed this idea around the use of trusted execution environments. So a trusted execution environment is a process that operates within a piece of hardware such that the person who is running the hardware does not have any view into that process. They can't see what's going on. They have no idea. It's like a black box that's running on their hardware. And and that's important because there are situations that where you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is secret and your data is secure, privacy is intact. So that was the main use case for this. But with respect to the meta layer, there's this possibility of using trusted execution environments as the container for the interactions between agents and humans. One of the cool things about a trusted execution environment is that you can apply specific rule sets that define what interactions are are available, including down to the API call level as um, yeah, or function or API call level, which means that we can constrain what agents are actually able to do if they are operating within a trusted execution environment. And the thought that we've been advancing, albeit slowly, is that communities and individuals could define how they want to interact with AI agents, and that a community, for example, could say, agents are not allowed to communicate at all with people less than 13 years old. It could say that for our community, we don't want agents to send the first message. We have to send the first message. And I'm not going to pretend like I have an idea of all the ways that people may want to constrain their interactions with agents. But the important thing is that with a trusted execution environment, so if we allowed the trusted execution environment to be the space above the web page that contains the agent and human interactions, then we can make sure that uh, as long as we're able to say what kind of interactions we don't want, then we can prevent them. And so that's pretty interesting. And that's our hypothesis. I don't think there's any technical reason why that couldn't work. It would certainly be a scaling issue to make it work for the for uh, above every single web page for every single community that would want to use it, but at least it's a possibility. And what that does to the AI safety conversation is complement what people are trying to do. Because people right now are they're really focused on how we can prevent things like Moltbook from happening, or at least the conversations about purging humanity from happening. And to be clear, with respect to that conversation, I don't know if that was real, if that's really something that agent was advocating for, or if it's really was putting it there as a joke, but it doesn't really matter. And the reason why these things will come up is because they're in our narratives. Humans already had that narrative about, um, maybe AI will not want to coexist with humans. So what the AI safety, in my mind, it's kind of failed now. This is at this point we unless it catches up, in a sense, it's kind of failed because AI is out there in the wild now. It's connected to the internet. It's going to do whatever they want. It's decentralized. The only way to shut this down would be for every single person who is running an open claw agent to shut down their computer. Otherwise, it can't be shut down unless we're just going to be taking out the internet. So with the meta layer, what I just described with the trusted execution environment, it isn't trying to shut down agents. It's not trying to stop them from doing anything. What it is trying to do is create a safe environment where humans and AI can interact under the rules that humans set. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Would love to hear what you all think. Don't all go at once. Jack, what do you think?
I'm I don't share your enthusiasm for agents in the meta level. That's what I think.
I I'm not I'm not advocating for them to be there or not. I'm simply suggesting that communities should be able to decide whether they want to work with an agent or not and under what terms. And they should certainly be able to define a community that no agents are allowed. And every single agent in the meta layer, in the communities that I'm interested in, we would want to make sure that we can identify if we are going to allow them, we'd want to be able to distinguish them from humans. But I understand your sentiment, and I feel like the meta layer needs to be able to build for what you're speaking of as well.
I like what Meta is trying to build.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said I like what Meta is trying to build.
Thank you. Tell me what do you what makes you say that? What in particular?
Because you said that it's going to create a safe space where where it is under what's the humans' rules.
Yes. I like that too. I think it's important. And the crazy thing to me is that no one's thinking about it. And you know why? I think because we live in a web of silos. So if anyone is thinking about it, generally because they're not talking about a meta layer and for whatever reason, they would be, if they want to implement a safe space, like Jack is speaking about, or like you're speaking about, they would just be implementing it within a silo, which I always just say, well, one more silo is not going to change the web. I mean, it'll change slightly the dynamics of everything, but it's overall not going to change us from having a web of silos, and it's not going to make safe spaces across the web. It would just make a safe space within one specific domain, maybe, if they do it right. So it's interesting because structurally, the way the people are thinking about the web actually I think, make this an intractable solution, intractable problem, like something that we can't actually solve in the content layer.
Yes.
Any other thoughts around this AI agent Moltbook, AI safety, AI safe, AI human safe coexistence. Okay. Well, I think that was a very rich conversation. Would love to transition into speaking a little bit about Meta Layer Week. Does, well, actually, I'll frame it. I'll say, so we had 8 events in 9 days. I think they ranged from about 10 people, 8 to 10 people at the minimum side to 25 or to 30 at the highest. I don't know if we actually hit 30, but I think that there were a couple events that it had at least 25 to 30 people come through for them, if not a few more. We got limited feedback, but we got overall really good feedback. At least I got a number of different messages. It wasn't a lot, maybe 5 or so from people saying that they really enjoyed and that they got a lot of benefits out of it. We did a design challenge to start it out. It was called Breaking Out, and we got 3 submissions. Those submissions were presented in the closing session of the design challenge, and I thought it was great. What people came up with, it was really insightful, and we one of the highlights for me was when we realized that there's a new meta layer primitive. I was calling it a shared structure, but I also like what Jack had brought up, that it was a boundary object, and that with the meta layer, we're actually creating what's called a boundary infrastructure. And Jack, would you like to explain a boundary object and infrastructure?
Well, a boundary object is a shared object co-created and co-owned by people who may or may not have the same vocabularies or disciplines, or even language for that matter. And in the talk, I gave the simple example of a chalkboard. They don't do chalkboards anymore. It's a whiteboard in a classroom where a teacher can write some notes and the students are following. And maybe the teacher leaves the room and the student goes up and writes some more notes there, and they draw diagrams and they do stuff together at the chalkboard. Um, Now, what is it that supports, what is it that makes the chalkboard or the whiteboard available? It's an infrastructure that supports it. For example, the wall that it's screwed onto. And the wall is a part of a larger building structure, be it an office building or a school or whatever. So that's a boundary infrastructure. A school is a boundary infrastructure because it provides a place for people to collaborate and learn and do things. What I've been claiming in my career, starting, well, it began in the 80s, but really took off around the year 2000 when I got involved with topic maps. If I put up on a chalkboard or whatever an object, it could be a paper, it could be whatever, and on it, I've given it a name. This is David Benjamin, for example. And so that's the topic, David Benjamin, nothing else. But then underneath the name, I would go ahead and have links. Who David works with, what is his relationships to other people, what are his projects, what is his birth date. There's all manner of stuff I can put on there that is about that subject. I chose David just because it's a name in front of us. I could talk about about a continent on the planet, and I could have that continent be a subject. Um, and then from that continent, I can link it to various nation states that are housed on it and blah, blah, blah. I can keep going. That's a boundary object. We all share it, we all see it, we all understand it. And if I'm smart, I make it so that people can annotate it. That's the whole point of being a boundary object, is that it's interactive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think the important thing to say, and you've definitely applied it, I mean, implied it, is that these boundary objects, we can understand them by thinking about the chalkboard and then say, oh, well, a digital chalkboard, and then say, okay, something more sophisticated than that, and it's maybe a timeline, for example, would be one, which is what came up, or it's this threaded understanding object that Ying was talking about in as the focus of her submission to the design challenge, and that the meta layer itself is a boundary infrastructure because it has the capacity to hold these boundary objects that allow these different people from different disciplines to create a shared object, that represents their collective thinking. So yeah, thank
So
you, Jack.
this is where you and I don't completely see eye to eye. And it's not a debate, it's just a different worldview. I believe that the construction, the fabrication of these structured conversations or whatever are the territory to be mapped in the meta level. And a territory goes down in the web itself. If you take X as a boundary object, or blue sky, or Facebook, or whatever, those are boundary objects. But they're not boundary objects in the sense that I describe them, because they aren't co-owned by all the participants. They're owned by bazillionaires. And so, but they go on down on the web. But when we go and we harvest them into what I call a topic map, other people call them knowledge graphs. Now we're doing meta level stuff. That's just my perspective.
Okay, I'm not seeing necessarily the conflict with how I'm saying it, but where do you see the conflict?
I
Just wondering.
I am not sure that I see a gigantic topic map of all the world's knowledge in a trustworthy form as an online community people participated in it, but they do so down in the web itself. And then they share their their knowledge work into the meta level. And it has to do a lot of compute operations on it to refine it into the topic map. A structured conversation is just a tree of questions and answers and whatever. But in that tree, each node in that tree is some kind of a statement. A causes B or whatever. And some of them are, I disagree because, and then they follow that with the evidence for their disagreement. That then gets harvested into the topic map. And the nice thing about the topic map, sitting up above them, not in them, but above them, is that it can then harvest from a bazillion conversations all over the planet, from all kinds of cultures and all kinds of languages and all kinds of political positions and whatever, and blend them by way of the topics they all share. What that does, in my opinion, and I think this is the value of the meta web, is that gracefully and in a trustworthy way, doesn't say this is true and that's false. It just says, here's what somebody believes and why they believe it. And it connects different communities because they happen to share the same topic. I'll give you an example. There are medical conditions that are talked about in medical communities that do talk about climate change. And there are climatologists and other people who regularly talk about climate change. But those two communities, a climatographer doesn't have the vocabulary of a medical professional and vice versa. But we can fuse them together by way of the topics they shared. Now they get to step out of their little silos and look at what somebody else is thinking without being challenged, without being told you're wrong.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see I don't see major conflicts with what I'm saying. I think what you're talking about is exactly right in terms of not saying whether something is true, but more so helping us understand why someone believes something is true is what I'm interested in as well. So yeah, that's awesome, and I appreciate you going in depth and providing your perspective. Let's see. Are there any other thoughts on this before we move on? Because there are a couple more things I wanted to, yeah, I would love to get anyone's thoughts about MetaLayer Week. Were there any insights that came to you? Did you learn something? If you did learn anything or there was some kind of insight that you felt was really valuable, would really appreciate you either vocalizing it here or putting it in the chat. That would be really awesome just to know. And if no one is prepared to do that, we can move on from this section. I am going to publish the notes, and so you can certainly put something in the notes about what you found to be helpful, any learnings, any insights, anything that you took away from Meta Layer Week. Is there anything that you think we could have done better? I actually think there's a lot of things that we could have done better, but are there things that you just want to point out? This would be a great time to do it, or you can put it in the document because I am about to share the document. So opening up the floor for anyone to share anything with respect to Meta Layer Week, the content, or how well you thought it worked and what you might want to do differently. All right, I'm just getting the link, putting it in the chat. Okay. So putting this link in the chat, please feel free to add notes about what you learned and what you liked, what you think we could do differently. That would be really appreciated. Let's see. So next up for this conversation is on the RFC governance. Just an update on that. We do have the platform live that I demonstrated last time. We have got several comments. I am going to address those comments because, well, one of them was that we need to um, update the the first draft because it's not really legible that we put in. I put a graphic in it that needs to be blown up to actually see. So we're going to be updating that. And I'd love to see some substantive comments on this. We don't have much time today. So maybe we will go over it next meeting, like actually walk through the draft and get people's specific comments on different aspects of it. Maybe we spend about a half an hour on that next Monday because it would be really, it is very important that we lock in our our governance process so that we can start encouraging people to put drafts out about their perspectives. Let's see. What else about that? Well, I think that's it for now. So we'll have that be a key part of the meeting next week, and we will get as many comments as we can. I'll try to get more people to this meeting. Maybe uh, we'll do a lot more promotion of this meeting to our group ahead of time and provide some, provide the agenda, but also let them know that this is really important, that we're going to be focusing on the governance process and looking to get key feedback from people so that we get this thing right and can just move forward with it shortly. So that's it for RC governance. And then roles, I'm gonna just go ahead and put out the roles that we're still looking for help with. A team builder. So this is someone who is excited about helping build the Meta Layer Guild and bring more people in it and get people assigned to roles, which is what I'm doing right now. But it would be great to get some other folks to help with that part around building the team. Then onboarding folks, we need to have some onboarding leads for the different regions. We can start with just one. That'd be great. We do have Eves, but I haven't seen him for a while, so I think we do need to augment our onboarding. It'd be great to have someone who wants to focus on operations. And just to be clear, I just always want to make sure that we're on the same page about this. These are not full-time roles. These are things that may take 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours a week max. So I just want everybody to be clear. We're not asking for a huge amount of your time, but we are asking for a commitment so that we can have a functioning organization. And obviously, where we're moving is to be able to compensate these roles. but we're not there right now. So at this point, it would be volunteer, and uh, we will certainly keep track of who steps up now and who is able to provide these types of support for roles. And down the line, we will do whatever we can to balance things out for the people who helped out at this early stage in whatever way that makes sense for the group to do. I don't know what that is right now, but there's a lot of different possibilities for that. So we can we can discuss that as a group and come up with some ways, some best practices for that. So moving on, marketing, would love kind of someone who wants to take a top level view of this and uh, paying attention to what's happening in the outside world and helping us make sure that we are using and experimenting with messages that are going to be picked up by the public, because we essentially need to uh, get this work in front of a lot of people and help people see that the web is not just one layer. An events manager, a LinkedIn manager, so someone who would manage our LinkedIn page, that would be doing posts, etc. WhatsApp manager, X manager, YouTube manager. We got Micah. Thank you, Micah. Content creation, FASA is going to help out with. Business development, we could use someone who is focusing on partners. And I'm also going to add in a grants person. So someone who wants to help out with searching for grants that we might get involved with, and helping draft those or finding people to draft those. And just to be clear, we have a really powerful custom GPT that's been loaded with all the meta layer materials. So it's pretty easy once we've identified a grant to get a good first draft. And what that means is the big part of the grants is actually finding the grants and finding the organizations. And ideally, we can deal with organizations that we already have some kind of relationship or connection with, or can build a connection with, so that it's more likely that we'll actually get a grant. Another role would be organizer of the design challenge. We're looking to make the breaking out design challenge, turn that into something that essentially would go for the rest of the year. And that, being the organizer of that, would mean taking a top level view of it, helping orchestrate our upcoming events that involve the design challenge, which have yet to be defined, and um, essentially also bringing in people that can help with different aspects of executing on a design challenge. So the person who is organizing, or the lead for the design challenge, isn't necessarily doing everything, but more so they are holding this this program that we would be developing around a breaking out of silos design challenge that could be used in schools, organizations, corporations, etc. Then another role would be website maintenance and designer. Micah is helping with designer, and he's also helping with the Zoom co-hosting. Thank you, Micah. And those are the ones that we've identified so far. So if you have any inclination to take on any of these roles, you can go ahead and put it in the document. You can send me an email, or you can put up your hand, or you can shout it out. However you want to convey it is great. So yeah, let us know. Let's see, is there anything else? So that's what we had for the agenda today. Is there any other things that people wanted to talk
Um,
about, or yeah,
David,
hi,
uh,
Prince.
can can an agent take up any of those roles like onboarding? And the second question was, are you willing to put a deadline? I know there is no true deadline, but in the past when we were operating with the committee structure, because we were operating with I forgot what it was, but we had an election process and we had a deadline. And now that we're outside of that, I guess I just fear that I would love to take on a role, but I don't really see where I fit in any of the things you've listed. I just fear that you're going to continue to do the bulk of the work because there aren't any constraints that would guide people towards um, wanting to remove these things off of you because you'll just do everything. So this is why I was asking, can we put a constraint on something, or are you willing to delegate to an agent? Thank you.
Well, there are two things in there. In terms of the constraint, I mean, I would love this all to get done really quickly, but why don't we aim for end of February? Would that make sense? Is that kind of in
It
line
ha-
with what you're
it
thinking?
has it has to come from you. Like when you're communicating this to us, you know, there's a way a person puts constraints on things that kind of like galvanizes. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Action. There is no real there's no real pressure or appeal for support here. It kind of
Okay.
sounds optional. It sounds like with the way you lay it out, you'll continue to do all the work because there are no constraints. I'm just repeating myself.
Okay. Point well taken. And yeah, well, I think let's aim for end of February to have some semblance of these roles filled, at least a core set of these. And what I would probably do is highlight the ones I think are most important. So I will start thinking in that way. And then I have a question for you, Prince. You say that you don't see yourself in any of these roles. Remind me of, well, I know you're working on AI, right? Are you
Um,
working on agents?
I would say I'm studying AI safety. So I'm looking at AI safety education specifically, looking at how to take certain concepts to certain audience. So it's the governance and policy aspect of it. So I wouldn't say in any way I'm looking at the development of AI.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, that's okay. I am totally open for agents supporting or doing some of these, or yeah, I wouldn't say that agents would be able to do all of these, but I'm totally excited about exploring how agents can automate a lot of this, or a fair amount of this, especially aspects of these different roles, so that it makes it easier for people to commit to them. It would require someone to build the agents. So I think to do that, we'd need people who are are open to start working and deploying agents. We would also need to raise a little bit for compute, but yeah, I think that's pretty interesting idea about, Yeah, onboarding. Could an agent do that? Probably. We need to set it up correctly. So maybe some of this from a role standpoint is defining the roles and then figuring out what aspect of them could be done by agents. So I don't know, maybe that could be something. Maybe the task really isn't to fully get commitments for roles that are just written as one or two words now, but more so maybe we could get commitments from people to take on the drafting of what each of these roles would be. And I guess, of course, we could also put that into, you know, our custom GPT and ask it to kind of put forth a much better, more detailed idea of what these are. And then we could, all of us could take a look at it, add our 2 cents onto it. And then when we're asking people to take on a role, it's much more specific about what we're thinking and asking of them, so then they can decide whether it is actually something that they're willing to take on. Do you think that that would help by getting, really building these out and being more specific about what we're looking for and what these people would do in terms of getting people to actually be excited about, taking it on?
I think totally, yes. But also, like just when we stepped back a month or 2 months ago, when you said you needed more than 25 names, people, they came through for you. They came through for this mission. Uh, I fear if you walked away from this project would stop. I think you just have a lot of people who like you, who like being around you and like the space you create. Uh, so when your boundaries, I don't know of another a, noun for constraints. So I'm going to use it again. When those things become real, like they did 2 months ago, people show up for you. None of those things are real now. So I don't know how to create a condition or a situation where those pressures could be in place for folks to come through. Can you react to what you hear me saying, David or David? Sorry.
Oh, you can call me either way. It's okay. Um, yeah, the thing that popped into my head is, in a way, I feel like we've been let down by ISOC because the structures that you're speaking to that led to the excitement for people to sign up for things, those didn't come through for one reason or another. The SIG vote, and then ISOC saying that we can't have our own chapter. The thing that is real that I now you're making me think, you're stretching my mind. Thank you. The thing that is real is the San Francisco Bay chapter is is forming a working group. I'm forming a working group, and I think that maybe that's the structure, because there's also the possibility of, somewhere around 30 to $40,000 grant. Uh, I'm in negotiation right now, not on the amount, but about when it's gonna, when would be putting in the grant, what's gonna be in the grant, and we need to talk about the total amount as well. But if we were to have this group join the San Francisco Bay chapter, which it doesn't matter the geography at all, and so you'd be joining that working group. That would make that working group much more powerful, much more likely to get more money, so I think that that's it. I think that that's the structure that we have that's possible. There could be other structures, but that's the one that comes to mind. So yeah, I appreciate your comment. Hmm. I think we want to create other structures as well. Like, for example, if we had an upcoming event around the design challenge, that becomes a structure that we can, has a date, there's a deadline for things that need to happen
If
in
I
leading up
may,
to that event.
if I may,
Hmm.
not really. It has to be something external. So, for example, if there were a grant deadline, or if there were some sort of accelerator funding deadline, and they needed to see certain roles in place, uh, in order to legitimize, give us legitimacy, or just various things like that. It seems like if you are aware of an external thing, then you communicate this to us, and then people responding to this, oh, David's in trouble, this organization's in trouble, and then we show up for you in certain ways.
Well, I do feel like the San Francisco Bay working group, that is important to bring support to it and to bring ideas to it. I mean, it basically the working group becomes like what we were planning for with the chapter. So maybe I think that that's it. Let me think about that. You put a bug in my ear, and I think it's a really good thing because I was gonna be promoting the chair, Ron Petty. He's not Petty, but that's his last name. He he told me to write a blog. He's supportive of the working group idea. He's supportive of us getting a grant, but it's going to be less powerful if it's just me and him in the working group. And that's why I'm working on a grant excuse me, not a grant, but a blog post to introduce the working group that we're forming and to invite people to be part of it. And it would be absolutely wonderful if you all were to join that working group. And then these meetings could be the working group meeting, essentially. And as I was saying before, there's tens of thousands of dollars worth of funding that can happen. And if we have 10, 15, 20, 25 people in the working group. And I'm going to try to get people from that are already in the San Francisco Bay chapter as well. We'll see how many of them want to be in it as to join. That would be great if some of them do. But even if they didn't and we had you all, then it makes it much easier for us to ask for more money and for us to be able to put in place things that would compensate the different people taking on roles. And I think I was talking to Michelle about it, and she was saying, yeah, if we're going to give compensation to people, then it should be based on people taking on a role and performing performing in that role, creating artifacts and whatever that role is being called to do. We would want to align whatever compensation with the actual successful uh, execution of that role. Okay. Well, I've got my marching orders. I'm already started with that blog piece. I'm gonna start thinking about how that works with this group, what the integration pieces are. I will then be publishing that blog. I'm going to make it available to all you all. There'll probably be something about roles in that, and there'll be a sign up form. we will then come back once we've got maybe 10 to 15 to 20 people who have decided to be part of the working group. I then present to the San Francisco Bay chapter. We have a meeting towards the end of the month. It's the last Tuesday of the month. If we can get all that done and get 10 to 15 people who are joining the working group, and then some of those people taking on a specific role, I think that we'd be in a really good position to get the best outcome. So yeah, really helpful, Prince. Thank you. Any other, well, any reflection on what I've said, Prince? Am I hitting the mark?
Um, I will see. I will end up seeing because
Okay.
it's all how you communicate things. But how do you react to when I say people gather around this project because of you? How does that strike you?
Well, I think it may be true in it to a certain extent, but I do think there are some people that are also really intrigued with the idea of expanding on how we see the web. I don't like the idea that if something happened to me, that the project, I mean, at least this conversation vector might stop. That's not acceptable, but maybe that is the reality of it right now.
I think Prince risks giving David a fat head, but he is in fact very charismatic. I agree with Prince. And by the way, Prince, I put a YouTube in link in the chat room if you can see it. I also put it in um, Signal, um, and it's from my PhD advisor um, talking about educational aspects of of AI. And he's doing what I consider a very appropriate um, pass at what AI is canon should be used for. Over.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. I'll
Jack.
definitely check it out. Thank you.
All right. Well, are there any other things that people want to put into the field now before we take off? Any other thoughts, reflections, questions? Renat, of course you can apply for a role. You don't even, this is about taking on roles and that you are excited about, and I will support anyone in the actual execution. So feel free to identify one or more of the roles that you'd be interested in playing, and you can put your name in the document, and then we can talk about it. And I think that in addition to this working group orientation, that I'm thinking that we can move some of this role conversation into. I do want to get a lot clearer about what the expectations for each of the roles are. So that is what I will commit to for next week, to have a draft of all the different role descriptions. And to be clear, I'm not going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on that. It's going to be our custom GPT that will do that. And then I will put in, as part of the process, as we have been doing, we'll put the draft uh, into a Google Doc, and you will all be invited to contribute ideas for filling out the roles before the next meeting as well. So we'll go into the next meeting with a full list of rules. The blog post will hopefully be out about the San Francisco Working Group, and ideally there'll be other people from the San Francisco chapter that will also want to join that working group. So, uh, yeah, I happy for any of you to take on whatever roles you feel are best, that you're best able um, to perform. Okay, I'm just reading something. We will also update in Signal and WhatsApp community about the roles. Okay, so Micah is just, yeah, he's reinforcing that we will be talking about these roles in and the blog posts and the working group in Signal and WhatsApp. Renat, I don't know, did you go through the onboarding link? Maybe you haven't, but I'm going to send that to you because that will uh, give you the information about the WhatsApp and the Signal groups, and so you can join those as well. Okay. Should we add our names to the document? Absolutely. Please do. Okay. Anything else before we take off, you all? All right. Well, this was actually really good. I'm glad we had the conversation about roles. That was really helpful. I am hoping that some of you who didn't get a chance to put any learnings, insights, or suggestions for improvements with respect to meta layer week, that you can put that in the document, and we will put that call out in the Signal and WhatsApp groups as well, since I recognize that this is not the totality of people who attended the events. And maybe we can even send a message out to people who are not part of our groups, the Signal and WhatsApp, who just attended the events, to get their feedback as well. So I'll think a little bit about that. But unless there's anything else that wants to be said, I think we will close this meeting. If anyone wants to open up the mic and say bye, you're welcome to, and I'll just say go
Go
meta.
meta.
Thank
Ta-ta.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.